say, Andrew.
Hello.
It's nice to have you back in the chair.
Yeah, appropriately dressed. I turned up in my Sunday best tonight, so, here I am.
You know what I love is just how you rock the professionalism.
Oh, sorry, yeah, keep going. What was that?
You rock the professionalism.
Yeah, man. Sheeps. Hey, these are $100 shoes. How much yours cost?
These are 120.
Crocs? They're Crocs, eh?
These Mamma Jammers are Crocs.
Oof.
And
they don't look like them, though.
I know. That's a good thing. I love them.
You
can't get them anymore, though. That's the annoying thing.
Covert Crocs.
They are stealth Crocs.
Yeah, sleeper cell Crocs.
But we're not going to get political.
Yeah, not getting political.
Getting political. Man, Janinka Greenwood.
Yeah, she was quite a fascinating journey.
That was really cool.
Yep.
Man, sort of, she reached out to us initially, through the Arts for Ukraine that she's doing.
Yeah.
Along with Alan Palmer, who's also going to have been a prior guest by the time her podcast comes out.
Yeah.
So it was kind of one of those things where it really was great timing. And, they've got such a wonderful thing coming up next month. They've got the two events.
Yeah.
And then they've got the art exhibition that she spoke about in November as well. So, what for me, for people that have sort of yet to hear it, because obviously they'll hear it next.
Yeah.
What do you think what do you think are some of the points that people should kind of listen out for, particularly?
Ooh. Well, she's seen a few different cultures, hasn't she? She kind of opened the doors. Not opened the doors, but was there when Māori kind of film and television was coming through.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, her story takes us dive into Kenya at some point, and she talks about
Portugal.
No, Portugal. Doesn't she talk about Kenya as well?
She does both, which is great.
So, it's just. Yeah, a story that goes everywhere, really.
Yeah, it's an international travel story. Yeah. So definitely people should keep a listen out for that, because man, when she talks about the travel to Portugal, her time in Kenya, referencing faxes as well. That's just like, wow, there's a blast from the past. I haven't heard that in ages.
Yeah.
It was one of those really interesting conversations where she'd obviously started on quite a set path, and then had kind of gone and just tried different things. She talks about drying out tea bags.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I'm pretty sure Mum and Dad did that as well.
Yeah, I have a feeling my grandparents did that.
Yeah,
so
why not? On that wonderful note, people, let us sit down and have a conversation with Janinka Greenwood.
Okay, over to you.
And over to me. Well, Janinka.
Well done.
Thank you kindly. Yes. Welcome to the Five Elements Media Studio to sit down with us today for the Northland Artist Conversation. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much for coming in. Now, this is going to be quite an interesting podcast, because we have Alan Palmer coming up this week. And Alan briefly spoke about the project that you and him are doing. So it's going to kind of cross over quite nicely. So I'm very excited when we get to that. We'll get to that a bit later on.
So we've got the project, and then Alan and I also had a history, which he probably told you about, with youth theatre.
Yes.
No, we worked with youth theatre.
That's right.
And then he worked in the Polytechnic with me for a while.
Yep, he did.
So there's multiple...
I knew about the youth theatre. Didn't know about the Polytech, though, so that's interesting.
Well, I'll tell you about the Polytech. I mean, we can start in the middle.
Let's start in the middle. We can just go wherever.
Yeah.
It's a fluid conversation.
So, around about 85, yeah, I went to the Polytech.
Yes.
And we started, first of all, I think it was Access at that time, whatever was the kind of Labour Department's funding of, programs.
Oh,
we started a drama program. And one way or another, it became a 3-year diploma program.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I became head of the applied arts. And so I was had the drama program, the visual arts,
Oh, right.
pottery, the whole umbrella of the lot of them.
Yep.
And initially, Stuart Devaney?
Yes.
Yeah. So Stuart came in as one of our first teachers in that program.
Oh, wow.
And then he left, and then John Bailey, who had worked down in Otago and was working at the Opera House at that time, wanted to come back to New Zealand for a year or so.
Right, yep.
So he came and worked with us. And then when he left, Alan came and worked with us.
Oh, fantastic.
And we'd had this history already before of youth theatre, so this was a kind of a
Yeah, because now you and him started up Whangarei Youth Theatre, didn't you?
Well, he started up. Let's be brutally honest. He started up.
Right.
And he employed me as a writer.
Okay, yep.
But then I also became the chairperson of the Northland Trust Board.
Ah, right.
So,
okay. Because you were involved early on in the piece, weren't you? It wasn't like the youth theatre's up and running and well established, and then you come
very early in it.
Yep.
Really important within the role of the trust board, because we had to make the work that youth theatre possible. And at that time, and let me throw my little political bit in here because it's really important to me.
Throw away.
No, but at that time, Forum North was a people's place.
Okay, right.
It was given to people to do stuff. Youth theatre took over the whole summer.
Right.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Free.
Awesome.
They didn't pay, weren't no charge.
Yep.
What they took at the box office and what we took at the box office went into production.
Right.
Yeah?
Okay, yep.
No, nothing back to the corporate thing.
Right.
It was given to Taitokoro Festival. It was given to... I worked for a long time with Arnold Wilson, who's a Māori artist and carver and educator.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a dynamic and inspirational guy. I'll tell you about him later when we go to other bits of the story.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
So he ran his pakiaka projects there, where schools came in, artists in the community, people like Wallace Hetaraka and a whole lot of other art. He's the only one that I know who's still here in the community.
Yeah.
Would come in, and we lived in there for a week, more or less on a Māori protocol, looking at local stories, creating, first of all, because Arnold was a visual artist, first of all working with kind of murals, which used to hang through there, and they've moved them now. And then drama and dance and music came into it much more, partly in Forum North because of me and my interest in drama.
Right.
That grew a bit.
Yep.
And so all those things just happened at Forum North, free, because it was a people's place.
Right. Okay.
Now I had to throw that in because now you can't get into Forum North without paying a fortune.
Well, yeah, no. There's fees involved.
Yes.
There are fees involved.
And because it'd been fundraised by the community, I feel strongly about that.
Okay, right.
Yeah. It is a people's place, and it's become a corporate place, and I think that's
a shame.
A shame.
Yeah. There was a question.
It could change.
It may change. I think, you've got Forum North, who have got the facilities they have, and then you've got the likes of 116.
Yeah.
Which I've seen many a production.
It's a fantastic place.
It's an amazing venue. Absolutely amazing. There was a question that I wanted to ask that you, just listening to you talk now, has just kind of reminded me. When I was in high school, they had I've got to make sure I get this right, the National Youth Drama Program in Havelock North.
Mm-hmm.
How similar was that with the Whangarei Youth Theatre?
Well, I don't know what the Havelock North was like.
Oh, okay,
no, but
right,
I'll tell you what the youth theatre was like.
Yes, please.
So, again, it was a live-in basis. We probably 6 weeks of commitment. For some of them...
Oh, wow.
No, it was big. It was big.
Yeah, that's huge.
Perhaps for some of them it was only a month.
Yeah.
I tended to be the one who wrote the travelling play that went round to schools.
Oh, yep.
And so that would come on had a slightly longer development session, and we'd really only start touring, of course, when schools opened.
Yep.
And then we had probably 3 or 4 weeks, or 2 to 3, depending.
Okay, yeah.
So it was quite a long session for us.
Did you tour around, just Whangarei Northland, or did you go...
We did Northland.
Yep.
There were a couple of shows that we took to Auckland.
Okay.
And one in particular, Broadwood, which I'll tell you about it again if we get a chance.
Broadwood sounds very familiar.
Broadwood, we took to Australia.
Yes.
And we actually performed it at the QPAC Theatre, which is the big...
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And one of the really exciting... It's got a haka in it, it's got a bit of... Yeah, like your feet are popping over there. It's got a very strong
bit of movement.
It's got strong physical movement.
Yep.
And we were offered the stage of Capricornia, which was an Australian play, Aboriginal play about the far north.
Oh,
and
wow.
they'd packed up the stage with about a metre of rammed red earth.
Oh, wow.
Which was their performance space.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when we performed on it, we almost choked the audience with dust. But
of course.
Not all the time, obviously.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that was kind of the down part, except we didn't choke them. It was okay.
Yep.
But the privilege in one way also of working on that rammed red soil of Australia was quite a big thing for me, you know. And bringing a Northland story and bringing Te Reo Māori into it. These were really big things.
Yeah, because essentially you're bringing Te Reo over from New Zealand to Australia, and then you've also got the fact that this Aboriginal play, which is very, culturally of the people in Australia as well. The merging of the two would have been very exciting.
So we merged more in the space, but we had their consent to have the stage because we'd gone part of a conference, you know. Yep. So they gave us their stage. Well, they probably had a break, to be honest.
Yeah. That's very cool. So you've obviously got quite sort of an extensive background in theatre and drama. Let's go back, right back.
How far? Birth? Come on.
Let's talk about what got you into acting. What was there a particular moment? Was there a certain inspiration? Myself, for example, I watched a lot of movies as a kid, and I always enjoyed that sort of thing. So when I first found my love of acting in Standard 4, that's kind of where it took off. But what is it for you? What made you go, I wouldn't mind giving this acting thing a bit of a go?
So acting was part of it, but I was always also interested in the writing and the acting and the writing. So in high school, I performed because that was, But I saw Laurence Olivier and Henry V when I was about 11. Fell in love with him as...
Wow.
At that time, And that made me read Shakespeare.
Okay, yeah.
Even as an 11, 12-year-old, kind of cover to cover. Now, obviously I didn't get... I got it, but I didn't get it as the way that I'd get it in it later.
Yeah.
So I think I fell in love with the possibility of story and the fact that story could unfold in action and it could unfold in intimate action, because stage is a much more intimate media. Even though Henry V would have been a movie version, I'd seen. I liked the fact that it was a physical, embodied thing.
Yeah.
And the embodiment, I suppose, it was always been part of it. But I'm not sure I had a total passion to become an actor ever, because those were opportunities that could have come.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. I probably I drifted through university probably on a little bit of lectures, a little bit of social life, some politics, some strong things about the anti-Vietnam War, those kinds of things.
Yeah, sure.
And managed to pass my exams as I did it.
Yeah.
And then I met the man who was become father of my children. I met Jerry, who was potter, and he lived in Coromandel. And
love Coromandel.
Within a couple of meetings, I don't think we ever actually decided we'd move in together. We just did.
It just happened.
Very quickly.
Right.
Yep. And so Jerry was a potter, and I started living around his pottery for a little while.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was when I learned to make pots.
Yeah.
I became a good second-class potter.
A second-class potter.
Well, Jerry's top class. Jerry was an artist.
Tier 1. Right, yeah.
I mean, it was organic. It came from somewhere in here, and it just flowed through his body and his arms. And he wasn't pretentious about it. He just kind of lived it and flowed it, and it was total.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was kind of good at glazing. I could shape a few things. I could sell his work. I could live with the pottery.
Yeah.
But I realised also that I was never going to become a potter. This was not my thing.
You were never going to be the class one.
No, well, it also didn't flow out of me,
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then we had children, and I went teaching because we've got to earn a living. We talked about them. What was it? Financial responsibility? No, you had a different term.
Fiscal responsibility.
Yeah, well, you do. You've got to pay the bills.
Absolutely, you do. Kids got to eat.
Yeah, and you can only have so many cars reclaimed and the rest of it.
Yes,
and we did all that,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when we shifted up here, we came from Coromandel. Yeah, we bought a beautiful block of land in Para Bay with a totally decrepit house on it.
Yeah. Yep.
Outdoor, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it really was a shack. And we re-dried our tea bags because we couldn't afford anything else initially.
Yeah.
It all went on mortgage at that time.
Oh, yeah.
So the fiscal responsibility was a biggie.
Yes, absolutely.
I became a teacher. I liked teaching. I don't feel it was a sacrifice at all. It was lovely. But it's what probably my energy went into for a while.
Okay.
Except that the drama kind of kept coming back in there because at that point we didn't have drama teachers. This was pre-drama.
How are we
pre-drama
talking?
in the curriculum, 70.
We're talking the late 70s?
No, early 70s.
Early 70s, yep, okay.
No, maybe mid-70s.
Right.
I started teaching in 73.
Okay,
yeah.
right.
Primary school in Coromandel, then I came up here.
Yep.
Primary and then high school. And so when I did productions at the school, there was something brand new.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, people did things. They did kind of, the kind of melodrama, etc., show. I remember our deputy head did one of those,
Yeah.
But I tried to do something else just because, again, of that, I don't know if I planned it. It was just organic. It was that need to make, to recreate, to embody. And so I thought I'll do Merchant of Venice, called a rehearsal.
Right, yes.
Now, Merchant of Venice and all Shakespeare's got a lot of male characters.
Yes.
Yeah. So one guy turned up and about 30 women. So I thought, okay, we've got to rethink this a little bit. So we developed Nerissa's story. Nerissa is the maid to Portia.
Yes.
And so we used a fair bit of Shakespeare's language. We used some of our own. We recreated, we improvised, we devised. We made a completely different thing, which really got me going in the kind of work that I did a lot of writing, really.
I was going to say, and that's sort of where the
writing
and story development came from.
At the same time, I was also writing short stories and poetry, and I've published in both those areas.
Yeah.
But yeah, that idea of working partly by myself, but also working with other people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's a kind of a partnership thing, and being very aware of who I would work with.
Yeah,
so I'm working with high school kids. I know, I can stretch them. I can stretch them a very long way.
Yeah.
Very long way. But you've got to capture their voices, their body, their opportunities. And you've got to play fair to who you've got.
Yeah.
So that got me really writing a particular style for youth theatre too, because I knew the kinds of people I had. I had young people.
Yeah.
I had a good ear for the language that they'd use, so I kind of managed to get those. I don't think I could do it now because I've lost all the kind of jargon of the youth.
The lingo, the shorthand. The
mode, the kind of offbeat, half humour, not humour, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Most of the plays were serious, but trying to do it with a touch of humour, a touch of... I like to work a bit of... Maybe it was Brecht's influence in a very indirect way. I like to involve a little bit of song in each of them.
Okay,
so, there'd be... and get a musician to kind of do the music part of it. That were kind of... they weren't like musical where you just stop the story and have a little sing. They were actual kind of either underlinings or focuses or bridges into something else.
Okay, right, yeah.
Maybe scene setting, maybe kind of reinforcing something and transitioning to something else. Yep. So, that was the writing. And about that time too, two things happened for me that were really empowering, I think, for me as a person with them. One of them was becoming involved with Arnold's program of Māori Pakeaka, which opened up the whole world of Māori and the permission to walk in there and to learn. Yeah.
Right.
And that's became a major, major influence in my life and my work.
Yeah.
And the other one was, that was kind of, working cross-culturally doesn't flow, but nevertheless it flowed very generously and warmly with all the hiccups that come.
Yeah.
the other one was kind of getting involved in drama as a medium for learning through the kind of legacy of Dorothy Heathcote. And I don't know if you know about her work at all.
No, I don't.
Okay. So Dorothy Heathcote, England, North England, she revolutionised a lot of teaching by using drama as a means of active learning.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So she used role, she used teacher and role. She had very strong structures that I can't go into now because we'll have another session on that one day.
We can have another one.
But yeah, a rich process, which enables you to look at things in different ways than if you're just teaching in a classroom.
Right.
Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So getting involved with her work, it came to New Zealand. I felt that it was a little bit overprotected here in New Zealand, like if you didn't become the acolyte and learn in the right steps, you weren't empowered to do it. And one of the things that made it possible for me to work in it was A, I was allowed, but B, because of the work I did with Arnold in the Māori field, there was already a kind of a smudging of boundaries, you know?
Right, yeah.
I could break out of the...
Yep.
And I'm not saying that's Dorothy Heathcote's fault. I think it's just the way that sometimes people carry a tradition from one place to another. Yeah.
So essentially you can sort of, you have that little box and
there's a method,
This is the box.
This is the method. You talked about method earlier. It's the method.
Yep. And we don't deviate out of the box.
Not too much, yeah.
Yep. But now you can. You can start to...
So that pushed me into a different space. And so a lot of my work was involved in that field as well as in writing for theatre.
Yeah.
It's involved me in international organisations where I've kind of been part of IDEA, which is international. It's kind of was very alive. International, what is it? Association of Drama and Education.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And our first meeting was in Portugal in 1992.
That's not too bad.
It wasn't too bad, you know. It was exciting. It was incredibly exciting to suddenly be in there and to be working with people. Do you know about the Pater Theatre Company?
No.
Okay,
I'm loving this. But
they were a company from the Philippines who were doing social kind of agitprop, but much deeper than agitprop, kind of, you know, working with communities for social change in drama.
Yep.
So they were there. I mean, these were these big names that I'd kind of known there, and they were working with us physically here on the ground. And I somehow got caught up with a group of the African actors and people just because I went to that particular place where they had lunch one time.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting because later on I became a trained, because I speak French. I arrived in Portugal, not speaking a word of Portuguese and just hoping somehow between English and French I would get by.
You kind of make your way through it, yeah.
Yeah. And without the address of where I was going to, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Because it changed. I mean, somehow it worked.
Yeah. Well, you have to make it work. You got to sleep somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So it all worked, and so I became their translator between the African English speakers and the African French speakers, who otherwise probably couldn't have talked to each other.
Right.
From different parts of the country.
Yeah,
you know, in the session that they had. I mean, usually they did different things, but then there was an African continent meeting.
Yeah.
And they said, Janinka, come along because you can help us talk.
That's awesome.
So it was that kind of space of a feeling that there's a world which uses these processes in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, one of them, have you got a minute to talk about being in?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So later there was another conference in Kenya that kind of grew out of that. And because I'd met some of those people, they said, when you come to Kenya, you're part of our family, you know?
Yep.
So the guy who had said that to me was one of the big organisers, so I barely kind of met him because he was busy. But two of his students picked me up at the airport, and, you know, you kind of passed truly hand by hand. I wouldn't have survived if I hadn't been passed hand by hand. Not because it was prejudice, not because of anything else, except there were a lot of people, a lot of policemen with guns on their hips, and the students told me, you know, we don't trust that.
What year is this?
This is 96, probably 6.
96?
7, maybe 8.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is still pre-millennium.
This is pre-millennium, and this is when there was some nasty... When I went there, I waved my goodbye to my husband at the airport, and then he said the first time he heard from me again was when the plane landed in Perth, even on the way home.
On the way home.
3
Right.
weeks later.
Wow.
Even though I had sent him faxes and letters.
Yeah.
And also, and so somehow they all arrived the day after. Somehow in the mail, I don't know, you know.
It's amazing.
It was, you know, that kind of, and
Yeah.
yeah, there was some embassy rather blew up. I mean, it wasn't actually a totally safe space.
Yeah.
It wasn't a safe space. And it was things like, you know, they would find, you'd catch a taxi somewhere, because all the transport was by taxis. Now, taxis is not a flash concept of a Cadillac. Taxi is a little car, slightly beat up, 2 people in the driver's seat because they don't trust each other with the money. You know, you've got to...
Wow.
Yeah, 2 people in the driver's seat.
Wow.
And like, if you think of a Mini and you fit about 8 people in it as passengers, you've basically got the idea of a taxi.
So you're essentially like carpooling or something like that, yeah?
Well, it's... You wave it down, they fit you in, you know.
Right.
And so it was the people, again, who I was connecting with who would look after me and... no, that one hasn't got brakes. Go for that one, you know. So it was that kind of thing of being looked after. And there was one incredible time where Africans do drama. Africans, you know, you say to people, this was then anyway.
Yeah.
What do you do? Oh, I'm an actor, or I'm an artist.
Mm-hmm.
None of this kind of shamefulness of, you know, like a Kiwi. Oh, I do a little bit of painting, or you know, I kind of do like to get on stage occasionally.
Bit of a hobby.
I'm a dancer. I'm an actor. I do this, you know. And so there was a festival one day, way out somewhere, past Kisumu, you know, not in the capital. Yeah. On a huge rock. And it's kind of movie theatre almost stuff, you know. This huge rock that falls down a precipice into a valley, And people from all the villages came, thousands of people came, and they performed, because there was a lot of drama for health issues and for sexuality and for women's rights.
Oh, wow.
They performed all those kinds of...
Yeah.
This is the kind of work I was really interested in, you know, where you make the drama to create change one way or another.
Yeah. And it's really sort of hitting a key topic, right? Yeah.
So there were all that kind of work going on. And then at one point I suddenly noticed people were disappearing. And by the way, by that time, a couple of us had come earlier in the setup. But the whole conference, the conference had 3 or 4 places to go to, but about maybe 500 people from the conference arrived for the festival in buses.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Buses left them, going to come back for them. At some point I noticed most of the locals are disappearing. And, you know, they're filming, you know, and then suddenly the film people are saying, we're going to pack it up. You know, we're going to pack it up. It's going to rain. And clear sky, no rain. Within half an hour, Noah's flood happened. Quite literal. You know, the water poured down. Yeah. Totally poured down. And we evacuated into a shop initially. And, you know, and there you kind of crowded in, and it was kind of like villagers start saying to you, you know, would you take me back to New Zealand with you? Take me to America, take me, you know. Yeah. You know, all that whole thing of, And so it was the kind of adventure of being in something extraordinary, finding a way in, but also, like, most of the people were panicking. When will the buses come and rescue us, you know? Yeah.
So you're in Kenya, essentially 3 weeks without any communication with your husband, and you've just been hit with the mother of all floods.
Well, it was only a rainfall. I mean,
but in Kenya,
but it was the rainfall.
That's a
flood.
rainfall.
Yeah.
You know, how long into your journey, into your time there is that, and then sort of what do you do from that point onwards?
That was probably the last week.
Right.
But we were in a village here. We're in Sageti. I'm just remembering their names now, which is a village kind of 3 or 4 hours away from... 3 or 4 hours by the buses we used.
Right.
From Kisumu.
Yeah.
And it's a very remote village, you know. I'm not sure there was much electricity ever. I just can't remember. But I know the cooking happened on big stoves with wood, you know.
Oh, the big round sort of...
Well, big anythings, because they were kind of cater for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So they were getting the food. It was like the first night we came, it was much more intimate because there were only about 4 or 5 of us who'd come to the village early to to kind of introduce ourselves before the masses came, I suppose.
Yeah.
And, I do remember being served the whole chicken with the head and the chicken claws sticking up in it.
Right.
It was,
well, it's a different experience.
It was a different experience, yeah. And amazing hospitality and warmth and kindness,
Yeah.
The chicken legs were a minor feature and something else that was incredibly warm.
Yeah.
And so there we were, we finally got back into the village buildings, the main parts.
Yep.
And everybody's sheltering and they're all panicking. They're all saying, why can't we get a cup of tea? Well, because they actually take a long time to get the fires going and they're trying to make a meal to feed all of us. No, you cannot I'm dying of thirst, This is the internationals, not the Africans. So a group of me and another woman and two of the African men who'd been kind of looking after us, started collecting money to go down to get drinks at the shop for everybody.
Right, yeah.
And, I mean, everybody was thirsty. It was a fact, you know.
Yep.
Even though there's all that rain outside,
You're still thirsty.
You're still thirsty. Some people wanted cigarettes. Those were the days when you could actually smoke.
Yes,
yeah?
I remember those days.
Yeah, so there were people who wanted cigarettes. And, of course, all the guys who were doing the work didn't have any cash on them. So we overcharged each item a little bit so we could buy stuff for the workers.
Oh, of course. Yes, absolutely.
We put a kind of so we collected our money and we slid down to the shop and we kind of crawled through the mud back. It was
slid down to the shop. That's brilliant. Yeah.
It was really fun. And you buy cigarettes one at a time, not by the packet,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was really, I enjoyed it. I had a wonderful time.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of people who were not happy campers because they hadn't expected to be trapped. They wanted to get back to wherever they were staying, where the hostels were going.
Yeah.
It was chaotic, It was
Sure.
a bit but we made them, and we forced them to stay we almost forced them to stay for dinner because the buses finally made it through just before dinner was served. And we put a veto on it. You are not
No, you stay for dinner. Of course you do.
This is going to be an international incident. You are not leaving on a bus till
no.
we've had dinner and said goodbye.
But what a hell of an experience too.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun.
So you're there for 3 weeks, you then fly back, and this is late 90s.
No, it was probably 98.
Late 90s.
Late 90s.
Late 90s.
Because I was doing my doctorate in Brisbane at that time.
Right. Yep. We hit the millennium, and then what happens for you? Where does your sort of life progress from that point onwards?
I didn't know I was going to have a life actually at that point because I'd left Northland Polytechnic and I'd gone to do my PhD partly because I think I didn't have the courage to be a beachcomber. And so, there was something else to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I'd ever work again because, I was kind of, I turned 50 and, what do you do?
We'd lived the life. Yeah, of course.
So I did. I got a job in Christchurch, University of Canterbury, Teachers College.
Yep.
Starting a drama program there. I wasn't set up to start it. It was starting and I was employed into it.
Right, yes.
And it was a very different scene than working in the North. Working in the North where I'd worked not in youth theatre but the project we'd set up, in the applied arts.
Yep.
It was energetic. It was kind of, well, in one way we were our own bosses because we made it. Working in university is a whole different ballgame. If you went to EIT, that you can have a very organic program.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I went to EIT 99-2000, and at the time that I was looking at drama schools, I was living in Gisborne. EIT was close; it was only a couple of hours away. There was Toi Whakaari, considered the gold standard, the benchmark of drama schools, and I knew of the University of Canterbury's program, and that was always, and from everything I'd heard, it was always considered to be the...
No, but you probably... Which one? There were 3 programs at the University of Canterbury.
Oh, wow.
There was Sharon Mazer's program, which was in the university. At this point, the College of Education was still separate. We had a teachers program.
Yes.
For teachers.
Yeah, the one I was looking at was at the
Sharon
university.
Mazer's, yeah. And then there was also NASDA, which was the School for Musical Theatre.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there were 3.
I was
I was doing the teacher education.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was an intensive for the luxury of those days, we were going to train drama teachers. Now you're kind of lucky if you get a couple of hours in the week, you know, of specialisation. We actually had a program for drama. So I shouldn't complain that it was more restricted than working in Northland. But it was much more restricted. And Canterbury's was a little bit old-fashioned in those days, to put it mildly.
Yep.
It's changed radically, I think, since the earthquakes. Tahu's presence there has become much stronger.
Yes.
It's Muslim population, a whole lot of other things have changed, and it's quite an exciting city now.
Oh, yeah. I was there.
But at that time, it was the first 4 ships. It really, truly was the first 4 ships. I remember talking to a principal and saying, you know, he was telling me, you don't get to be a principal in this town unless you've got family that's come from those origins.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's changed. You know, that's totally changed. And whether he was right or wrong isn't the point. That was the fact that he could say that with some credibility.
Yeah.
That was true, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And so while it was exciting to work in it in one way, I had the opportunity within a few years of moving into bicultural coordination, and I grabbed it because the drama wasn't as exciting as it could have been.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I had a whole lot of different things, and then I ended up being a doctoral coordinator and things like that. But yeah, I don't suppose the passions change, but the way you work with them changes a lot.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you talk about teaching drama teachers. As someone who, when I was in high school, you had a drama teacher, they were full-time. You know, my drama teacher also taught classics. So I have a love of classics as well. But there was always
classics too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So amazing. Greece and Rome. I'll get there one day. But nowadays you don't really have drama teachers per se.
Well, you do.
But do you have them to the same extent that we had, dare I say this, 30 years ago?
No, you have a drama teacher in a school.
Okay.
Yeah, but you don't have a training program that trains them in the same way.
Right.
So they train.
Okay. Yeah.
They're expected to either have gone to Whakari and before they do this, 1 year specialisation.
Yes.
Teacher.
Yep.
Yeah. Or something like that, and they just get a couple of, honestly, a 30-hour course maybe.
Well, and that's it.
That's it. And even then, at the end of my work there, I kind of kept teaching in the drama thing a little bit right through.
Okay.
It was cut back to an arts module, 30 hours in introduction, 30 hours advanced.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it was also shared with music. Visual arts kind of opted right out and said, look, we forget it. But we shared it with music. And we managed to split, but we'd still only get paid for those 30 hours. And if you split, and then you had to compromise sometimes and do things together. Yeah. So I think we've lost something really precious. I think we've stopped training. We get more conservative things, so we can have still, don't get me wrong, we've still got some really fabulous drama teachers because they are who they are.
Yeah.
And I mean, as I told you before, I came from a tradition where I wasn't trained in anything. You have to learn on the hoof.
Yeah.
People still do it. And Drama New Zealand, which is the kind of association of drama teachers, helps people learn from each other, so there's some great stuff. Yeah. Nevertheless, there's probably a temptation to fall back on more conservative things. So people do the musical show because it makes money.
It's
safe. It's safe.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that everybody does it, and there's still some amazing work happening. Yeah.
Yep.
But because we're not actively teaching people to see drama with more possibilities in our training programs.
Yeah.
It depends whether they're going to do it or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's...
So we've sold out. Again, we've lost, the dollars.
There you go. The dollars,
moved across
we talked
the
about
richness of the possibilities.
We talked about that sort of in the pre-discussion, the meeting of art and commerce. We've kind of moved away from the art and more towards the scales are unfavourably tipped towards commerce.
I think it's, but the other thing that sometimes I feel, well, two things. One, I think it's always about becoming. So part of me would say I was really depressed that the drama program that we created at Northland Polytechnic doesn't exist anymore. You know, it died when some of us weren't there anymore.
Yeah.
The other bit of me says, but this is the way it is. It's about being creative, and you don't set something in concrete that's going to last forever. You make it, you burn it, if you like. You kind of have the fire of the energy, the love, the making, the power, and then it'll work, and it'll feed some new people.
Yeah.
And then maybe somebody else has to make something new again, because otherwise it wouldn't be creative, it would be institutionalized. So a bit of me says it's not that tragic, you know? It's the way it is. And the other bit is that the things that we learn in drama are not things that are exclusively useful on the stage. They're useful everywhere, you know? I would say that all my work in research or my work with doctoral students has involved not acting, because that would be really false, but an awareness of context, an awareness of role, an awareness of tension. I'm not just talking about between me and them, but about what they study, you know, about their communities,
absolutely,
about bringing things to life.
Yep.
And I've always been interested in research methods that are creative.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about them now, but I'm probably at the front, you know, the edge of that, of creative methodologies as opposed to kind of flat ones. Yeah.
the more traditionally structured ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean that's you know, your journey itself has been fascinating, because you know, you've obviously been someone who's started off acting, writing, and then you've sort of moved across into teaching while still continuing to write as well. Who are your influences? I mean, because you know.
I don't know. You asked that on a piece of paper, and I
did.
Thought that stuff that I don't know.
So it is on the piece of paper.
And I think on the piece of paper I said everyone.
What did you say? Oh, there we go. Hard to isolate names. Probably Jerry.
That's my husband.
That's your husband.
Yeah.
And I thought that was absolutely lovely. So I'm actually.
That wasn't a sentimental statement. That was about. I think when I left university, a little bit of me had become cramped into an academic kind of, you know, I wasn't an over academic, because I was socially active and I was politically, you know, learning. And but it was a bit cerebral, a little bit in the head and a bit kind of talky.
Yeah.
And living with Jerry and living with the pulse of the kiln, and there is a pulse to the kiln. I don't know if you know much about pottery, but the firing can take, Jerry would fire to 1300 centigrade, and the firing takes 20 hours or so. It beats up the heat. It actually beats up the heat. You can feel the throb of it, you know.
Yeah. And
living with that, living with just the energy of making, and if things break, they break, you know.
Yeah.
It was outside the head and it was into the body. And that's why I say he was probably my biggest influence. Yeah. And also I loved them. But that was kind of not why I said that.
No, but I mean, you know, as you know, I mean, we've talked with a wide range of people, and it's one of the questions that we'll often ask. And you know, we've had some really just a broad spectrum of answers. We've had answers from, you know, who, you know, when it's like who inspires me, people in the community. Sometimes the answers can be very broad, sometimes they can be very narrow and specific. I read that and I thought that's actually really nice.
Yeah,
you
that
know,
was. Yes.
And I don't mean that in a way where it's like, oh, that's really sweet.
No, it wasn't sweet. It wasn't written as sweet. It was about passing on the fire. You know,
absolutely.
Liberating me.
Absolutely, and you know, the fact that you know, he was someone that inspires you, and you know, has been that way, because you know, inspiration has ebbs and flows and comes at different times and different waves. I mean, the people that inspired me when I was younger certainly aren't as inspirational to me now as some other people that inspire me. So, you know, I guess having that constant is actually pretty amazing.
But I want to throw in some other names too.
Sure,
because
throw them in.
I don't want to, you know, I talked about Arnold and his work, Arnold Wilson. Don Selwyn at that point, when we were beginning to do the work at Northland, Don coming and standing beside me and saying, I don't think he ever turned up for a single meeting. He was in an advisory committee. I'm not sure he ever turned up at a meeting.
Right.
But he was there.
Yeah.
He was there. So that when we were working in areas that were cross-cultural, bicultural, I knew that I had somebody who was there, you know. Yeah, he would have corrected if he'd felt a need.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that he endorsed everything. It wasn't as simple as that. He just simply was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know who I mean by Don Selwyn?
I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
So Don Selwyn is probably the godfather of Māori theatre and television and film in New Zealand. He was the one who made some of the first Māori films. He made what was at that time the very controversial Big Brother Little Sister, which was one of Whitty and Myra's short stories, and people said, "Oh, but it's a story about child abuse." But does it ever happen, says Don? Does it happen all the time? No, it's a story. We tell it.
Yep.
He made the Māori Merchant of Venice. You might have heard of that.
I haven't seen it, but I have heard of it.
And so he was also the one who started the first training programs, first of all for Māori actors and Polynesian actors initially, and then television crews, lighting, all those things in Auckland.
Wow, okay.
So he really opened enormous doors.
Yeah.
Yeah. A very... I'm not saying he was easygoing because he wasn't, I mean, I remember one of our graduates, a very talented young Māori actor, wanted to go and work with Don, and Don thought he was a little bit self-opinionated. And he just let him carry his clipboard for a couple of...
Right, okay, right.
Probably years.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he would never have put him down. He just didn't... He just had a way of...
Yeah.
Of pushing you to a max and actually doing something as opposed to just floating with it,
Yeah.
So he was an enormous empower and influence. But then there were other people I worked with. I worked with Steve Bradshaw, who was Kanikani of the Rangatahi dance that became Whaiao later. And all those people. Of course, Alan, who opened the doors into youth theatre.
Yep.
People I worked with there. I mean, problem is with all the people I met through the international drama associations. And I'd love to name thousands of names there, but they're not going to connect with people. So I just don't want to say that they're not honoured. They're hugely important.
Of course.
And then I even watch my 3-year-old granddaughter, and she teaches me things. Completely new things. So yeah, it is about actually everyone.
Yeah.
There is no... Even the people I don't like influence me.
Yes, absolutely.
They help me define some... No, I won't name any of them.
No, we don't need to name them.
But they help me define my edges, No, I don't like that. I won't go there.
Yeah.
That needs pushing, that needs bending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you do raise a very good point, because you can actually learn from everyone.
And it's about... learning, and then I kind of think, well, what is learning? Learning is about shifting. It's about being different. It's about something new growing. It's about something old falling away. And that happens. That's just the way it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And over time, I don't think we ever stop. I don't think we ever stop learning. The people that I think, as I said earlier, that we inspired or that we learned from quite early on, we naturally go and progress through our lives. I mean, I remember my drama teacher from high school, who I still consider to be a mentor to me this day, because he ignited that love, and I do mean love, of drama, because without him, I wouldn't have... I wouldn't have done drama school. I wouldn't have acted in plays in sort of different regions throughout New Zealand. I wouldn't even be doing this. I wouldn't be doing this, because it was just, to me, drama is a very broad covering word.
Well, it does cover all of this.
It does.
Yeah.
So I always pay respects to him, because he was always sort of the one that pushed me, and he was like, well, no, you can do better. And as much as I may not have liked him at times for pushing me as hard as he did, especially in high school, he always managed to get the best out of me, and he taught me a lot, and a lot of life lessons as well. So I was sort of eternally grateful. And you were saying before, you've got graduate students, and how the relationship between teacher and student, obviously very, very close. Do you still have students that keep in touch with you? And
well, probably, you see, I've had a lot of international. Some of them have gone back home. Some stayed, doctoral students.
Yeah,
they have stayed my extended family. They basically are.
Yeah,
and so when anybody passes or there's an event, I kind of notify all of them. I think I see us as and sometimes we actually work together in some things. But I was just thinking about when we're talking about students, and one of the highlights, the biggest compliments in my career, and I've had a rich career where some really big things have happened. One of the biggest compliments was when one of my students I'd taught at Northland Polytechnic rang me up when I was in the college, and he was setting up a project here through Taitokoro based in a number of different marae.
Yeah.
And he said to me, Janinka, I want to, because, I used to have a little black book at that time of people, I want to consult your black book. And I said, well, my black book kind of seems to have vanished somewhere, but, so I suggested a couple of names. And he said, so what about you? How about you? Would you come? And this was a totally Māori project, Would you come up and work? And so he employed me and paid me. And I worked in one of actually it was a very fabulous project, because I had the good fortune to be with the family who were the kaumātua of my best friend who died some years before. So I actually felt I was working on a marae where I was at home, But just the fact of being employed by somebody you have taught is a huge compliment.
Well, the fact
for me, that's
they've reached out to you.
That he gave me a job was probably the highlight of one of the highlights of my career.
Yeah, that's very cool. Northland Artists Conversation are incredibly proud to support the Quarry Arts Centre. Quarry Arts Centre, amazing place, located on Selwyn Ave in Whangarei. Such a wonderfully beautiful venue. They are an art gallery, and they have some amazing exhibitions, and they also hold Te Kōwhai Print Trust as well. Another really, really cool artistic endeavour that's done as well. They will have different exhibitions and shows of all different types of medium available as well, and they're such a long-standing venue in the community as well. Highly recommend you checking them out. Fantastic place. Really, really cool to take the kids and family as well. So, Northland Arts Conversation, proud to support the Quarry Arts Centre. I'd like to talk to you about an event that's coming up, and for me this is something that seems very, very relevant and very now. Arts for Ukraine.
Yeah. Arts for Ukraine is already happening.
It's already happening, right? Yeah. Is there? So
there's going to be a variety show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's going to be one on the 18th. There's going to be one on the 25th. So let me reinforce those dates and give people listening.
So the 18th and the 25th of September,
which are Sundays.
Yes.
We will have an art auction as well, probably on the 12th of November.
Brilliant.
On a Saturday. So we'll kind of, sell a ticket.
Yeah.
We get a glass of wine, and we won't make much on the ticket, but then the art auction will hopefully make. Yeah. We're working on the basis that we don't pay anybody anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the art's been donated?
Art's donated.
Right. Wonderful.
So, should we talk about that art auction quickly and then go to the other one? Because
absolutely,
I'll get rid of that.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So when people donate the art, we're making sure we put it somewhere where they don't charge a commission.
Right.
And Hihiawa's been really kind to us in putting up Yeah, down in bottom of is it Dent Street that goes right down?
Lower Dent Street?
Lower Dent Street, right
Yes.
down past Sabio's.
Oh, yes. I know exactly where you are. Yep. That's not too far from the theatre, the Riverbank Theatre.
Exactly.
Yep, it's just around that corner.
They're giving us
there
a
we
corner
go.
where they're going to display out. They won't charge commission.
Excellent.
They're not charging commission. Rayburn House is also kind of being very kind to us
Love
in a
Rayburn
similar
House.
way.
Absolutely.
116 is giving us the premises. Again, we're not paying.
Very cool.
Yeah. That's why we're not using Forum North, because even if we could get a grant to use it, we're trying to raise money for Ukraine, not for other institutions.
Sure.
You know.
Yep.
What we will do with the artworks is if they donate one, then we've halfway through an agreement. I don't want to say what it is until we finalise it.
Absolutely.
Where we will be able to exhibit 2 or 3 of their other work for their profit and commission.
Yes.
Yeah?
Okay.
So they donate one to us.
Yep.
Then somebody else will take care of the rest.
One for us, 2 for you.
2 for you, and somewhere else that you're dealing with associates, but not us.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. What a great idea. That's
So
very
it's
cool.
good.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So let me tell you about Arts for Ukraine, because
Please.
Yeah, this has come deeply from the heart. So, like everybody else, when the invasion happened, it was a bit of horror shock, you know.
Yeah, very much so.
And kind of like not really knowing enough and not knowing much and feeling helpless, and well, what do you do anyway, you know.
Yeah.
But when the theatre in Mariupol was bombed,
Yep.
and what had happened then, this was kind of about a month in, 6 weeks in,
Okay.
you know.
Yep.
The town was already besieged, seriously. And women and children particularly had gone and hidden in the theatre, into the crypts of the theatre, you know, when it was being bombed,
Yep.
as a refuge.
Yep.
And they'd written on the sides in big letters, children, Ditty, you know, on the sides of the theatre, on the grounds, so that the bombers wouldn't bomb them, you know, because you expect them not to bomb children. I mean,
would hope not, yeah.
Yeah. And in those days, they still half expected that.
Yeah.
And they bombed that theatre.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like, okay, it's just too much.
Yep.
We've got to do something.
Absolutely.
So I started, you know, running my Facebook and kind of getting news from everywhere and working with other people's Facebooks. And I went to my church and I took a big flag and asked if I could put it in front of the altar, you know.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff. Anything,
anything really.
I wrote to the ministers, you know, stuff. But one of the things is because of my interest in the arts, because I feel that artists care, I had this plan that we should somehow do something.
Yes.
And it's always slow to get things started. Some of it was my own slowness in getting things started in that way. Some of it was kind of making those first connections, you know.
Yes. Yep.
Little things come up, and then we were still in kind of half COVID lockdowns. Things weren't easy.
Yeah, it was a difficult time.
Yeah, it was. And so then I talked to a few people. Alan was one of them. Gillian, who's very tightly involved in 116, was another. Rayburn House people were others.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, we've got to get something going, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, I thought what we really wanted to do was to hold a big exhibition of paintings and poetry, was my thinking. Paintings and poetry in Forum North. I wanted it inside because, you know, through the corridors and through everywhere.
Absolutely.
Maybe for a week.
Yep.
Because I didn't want to vandalise, and you know, because these things can become politicised very quickly. So I didn't want that to happen. So that wasn't going to happen because they weren't going to give us the space, you know.
Right.
And so things had to slowly start shifting to thinking, well, how do we network?
Yeah.
Huge learning curve. We had to open a bank account. Opening a bank account for a non-profit organisation in New Zealand is incredibly hard. It's probably a good thing. I'm not saying it's bad.
Yep.
It's incredibly hard.
Yeah.
Opening one that wants to transfer money directly to
another country.
Well, no, not just another country, to Ukraine.
Yep.
One bank was kind of, well, we're going to advise you against it. I'm not sure which bank. It was a good bank, you know.
Yep.
We can advise you against it. If you really want to do it, we might do it with you. But we're not happy.
Right.
Quite seriously.
Okay. Wow.
Because, I don't want to go through all the politics, but I mean, A, it's a country at war. B, like any country that has broken out of the Soviet bloc, there were a lot of things to still work through within that country.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm not saying the bank was totally wrong, but it was really hard.
Yeah.
And we didn't want I didn't want the money to be transferred to an international organisation like Red Cross, because A, I wanted the money to go very much to Ukraine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And B, I mean, we see it now when the Red Cross can't reach the prisoners and things, At the moment, they're having real trouble reaching the prisoners of war.
Yep.
Because they're not being allowed.
Yeah.
They're an organisation. They have to protect their people. If you're going to try and rescue people, and you know that the bus is going to be bombed, your organisation will not put people there.
No. And
whereas Ukraine will, because it's them.
Yeah, and you can't swap one lot of people for another lot. And that's the challenge. You go, well, we're going to try and get these people out, but essentially you run the risk of there being
Big others. Yeah.
The group that's getting in can suddenly be captured, and it's like, haha, we've now got twice the amount of people.
So it's no negativity to those organisations, but it's the same kind of thing that happens. When I was in the earthquakes in Christchurch.
Yeah.
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 And it was the people down the road who helped. And it was the farmers from Darfield and the neighbouring districts who brought the water in, in their trucks. It's the people who are there who help.
Yep.
So we wanted that transfer directly,
Yeah.
We wanted to be transparent. We wanted all that. So that was huge. Learning how to set up a page on Facebook, and I've been on Facebook, but learning how to set up a page.
Yes.
We made every mistake in the book.
I think I might have done that too.
Yeah. We seem to exclude people. We did it all wrong.
Yep, absolutely.
Knowing who to so there were millions of mistakes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And there were some also really lovely surprises, like we've had 2 offers of work from Christchurch. Now this is outside our region.
Yep.
And one of them is a sculpture that's won a prize in an exhibition in Waikato. That's of kind of the breaking ice shelf in the Ross.
Oh wow!
Thing, yeah.
Okay, yep. Yeah.
So we've got to find the right way to market that, because it's not going to look that good just as a little picture. It's quite an intricate, fine sculptured ceramic work, and I've got to think about how we can actually work with that. There's some challenges when each of these offers come.
That's incredibly exciting, though.
But it's exciting, People. One woman, an Ukrainian woman in this community, had kind of dinner parties or cooking. We called them master chef classes in how to make borscht.
Yeah.
So we would go together and make borscht with her and then eat it. You know. So again, it's a kind of arts and many faceted.
Absolutely.
In fact, our first money came from sharing citrus, because there's been a flood of citrus in this town over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so put it out there, take some, give some money.
Yeah.
Art of giving, art of sharing, art of trees, art of growing. You know,
or koha.
Yeah, but it's also that it's a life art.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we want to involve artists, and one of the things I've been doing. This is the only bit of paper I brought with me.
Yes. Now you have a children's book.
A children's book.
And that is Mishka and the Bad Bears. Is that right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Talk to me a bit about that.
So I wanted to find a way where we could talk to kids about what was happening.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Partly because of my interest in drama, partly because I've got other people who are saying how to, talk about this. And I thought, well, we've got to find. And so I played with the idea of the mouse for a while, because in the sunflower field, because the sunflowers are the big emblem.
Yep.
And it took a long time to get it right, because it does,
Yeah.
And I thought, am I going to try and use verse? Am I going to try and use rhyme? Using rhyme is always dangerous, because it can. Well, you've got to do it right through.
You do.
You can break it, yes, you can,
Yep.
but you've got to be consistent. And if you're not very careful, it can betray you.
Mm-hmm.
You can get more interested in the rhyme than the actual words.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that was a battle all the way through. But in the end, I decided to use rhyme, because it's got kind of an energy, and it's got a push,
Yeah. It naturally propels itself forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there were lovely surprises that came when I was writing, because I kind of knew where it would go, but I didn't quite know where it would go, you know.
Yeah.
And then, so I've worked that out. And then a couple of the characters in there, like the only humans who appear in the story are the farmers, and they kind of walk on and in and out. They're not non-characters, but they're not the main characters.
Yeah, like a tertiary type character.
Yeah, kind of, you know. In the drawings, when I finally get drawings, envisage their legs being seen more than the whole body.
Yeah, okay.
You know, they're definitely there, but they're not the focus of the story.
Yeah.
The focus is on the mice and the way they make connections with others to get rid of the bad bears when they come.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the rabbits, initially, I mean, I didn't have a plan for the rabbits, except I knew that had a function in the story. They had something very specific they had to do. But I kind of found them being branded as the kind of the lazy guys, the good boy players, you know.
Right.
They just go around and dig, you know. They just make holes and dig. Because one point Mishka asks her grandfather, you know, how do we all... Well, it's really hard to know what they do in the scheme of things.
Right.
I'm not quoting directly, you know. They're just kind of...
Yeah.
And in fact, they do a really important function in the end, because they dig these huge trenches, you know, that block off the movement.
Yeah, of course.
But so it was a little surprises come. I'm talking about it because the writing, you don't pre-plan writing.
No.
Well, if you can.
You can.
But
I mean, we've certainly had writers on here before that have gone into some depth about planning. What was it? There's two types. There's the planners or the
spontaneous
seats, I think was what I was called. You know, the writers. There are the writers that plan and they'll sit down and methodically work everything out, or there are the ones that will just fly by the seat of their pants.
And I think I'm halfway between.
Yeah.
Because I do plan, but I know that I haven't got it until that other thing happens.
Yeah.
It's like in poetry, you know, the poetry has to come alive and then it has to be a surprise.
Yeah.
It can't be the poem you had in your head before you started or finished writing.
Yeah.
Something else. And it's been the same with drama. I think maybe that's another thing I learned from Jerry, the idea of the kiln gift, you know, because you make a pot.
Yes.
The glaze has a expectation, but the fire does something else.
Yeah.
It can wreck it, and it does.
Yes.
Or it can suddenly give it something that you couldn't imagine it.
Yeah.
With its power and beauty.
Yeah, because it's uncontrollable.
Yeah. And I think that writing's a bit like that too.
Yeah, I'd agree with
you
that.
do plan. You've got to...
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to work the craft very, very well.
You do.
And then you push it.
Yeah. I'd wholeheartedly agree with that.
So I may have an illustrator now.
That's exciting.
But she's not that I'm not happy with her, I am. But she's kind of she's got a day job, and whether she's going to find enough time to do it.
Yeah.
It's still the challenge.
Yeah. I mean, we've had an illustrator on the podcast here. Actually, our very first artist, her name was Aki Fukuoka. She's local. She illustrates for a series of kids' books called Billy B. Brown, and those books have been published of over 5 million copies. She talks about her journey. And
well, I hope I won't have to come and talk to you later about finding an illustrator, because I've got a lot of confidence, but I do know about the pressure of work on her.
Yes.
And because there are 20 odd pages, and there is quite a...
Yeah.
I see them as quick sketches rather than full...
Yeah.
Big paintings, because I think the story talks itself and it just needs...
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can certainly talk after this as well, because I've got we've had another guest on who wrote a children's book and had to source an illustrator as well. So and he's local, he's a friend of mine. So we can certainly talk about that afterwards as well. So
there's a conversation that we can have ongoingly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. What I like is that you're doing things that are relevant for the current. I think I've said it a couple of times, when the war on the Ukraine broke out, it was devastating, but there's also been like a really big flow-on effect. We've had an author on here who was looking at getting their book published, and because of the paper shortage out of Ukraine, that release date has just continually been pushed back. So, it was one of those things that, yes, it's on the other side of the world, absolutely, but it actually has an effect in New Zealand, and it's been really interesting to see how it has affected different people in different ways. Yeah. So, being able to get this book and it's called Arts for Ukraine. It's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
Those dates again are?
Well, the 3 dates we've got set now.
3 dates?
Yeah. 18th, 25th of September, 2 variety shows.
2 variety shows.
And we do have room for an artist or two in there if somebody really wants to play a guitar and sing a song.
I might.
Did Alan ask you?
No, he didn't. But I do happen to know a guy that can certainly spit out a few rhymes as well. So maybe I'll ask him. And yes,
be wonderful.
He's smiling at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and so
and then the
18th and 25th of September, which is
very
Sundays.
Fixed. They're coming 4 to 6.
Yep, and they're held at
116
on Bank Street, and then we've got, now did you say the
12th of November?
Now that's my son's birthday, so yes, I'm going to remember that, and that's being held to be determined.
No, We'll let you know.
Yes.
It's almost settled. We
go.
We have a very generous offer of venue.
Oh, wow.
In a really nice place.
Yep, that's excellent.
But there's just perhaps a tiny bit more finalisation that has to happen before we're floating their
name.
We can
release the information.
But we're really grateful to them, and it's really fantastic. And we might be looking for, I'm not necessarily pushing you here because it's your son's birthday, but again, contacts, we're looking probably for a singer then, because there's be a little bit of food, a glass of wine or two.
Yep.
And before we begin the art auction, while there's people eating, it'd be nice to have a song or a little bit of something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And, that's obviously one of the amazing things.
We have a wonderfully kind auctioneer, professional auctioneer. Again, I'm not giving names yet. Who has offered his services, again, as a gift,
That's very cool.
And these are lovely things.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's probably the wonderful thing about having started this podcast is having met a wide range of different people with different creative endeavours. And, we've got a couple of musicians coming up, actually. So maybe,
Good.
just reach out to us, let us know.
Did you say have little bits of rhymes? Or?
Oh, they've got a little bit of talent.
A little bit of poetry here?
Yeah, a little bit of poetry.
Or a song, or a lyric, or...
So Andrew's one of the producers of the show. He has a hip hop collective called OBC.
Hip hop?
Yeah, absolutely. And Andrew was very kind enough to invite me to a gathering of, was it OBC that night, or kind of OBC, and he invited me to come along, and we took some cameras and we did some filming and stuff like that. But man, just hearing those guys was absolutely amazing.
Well, there you are. You're on. Sorry, I don't think there's a wriggle room here now. I think you've lost it. I mean, you might have had it, but it's gone. Both feet are plunged in deep.
So, 5-minute mark. Janinka, look, thank you so much for coming in and sitting down and talking with us today. Honestly, I really do appreciate it. It's lovely to talk with someone who is so giving of their life and their story. And I think this Arts for Ukraine idea is absolutely wonderful, and I do wish it unparalleled success.
Good.
I think it deserves it.
And we'll call on you to help it.
Absolutely.
Because
call on us.
I have no shame in this area.
No, that's fine. You don't have to be shameful at all. Ask away. We will help out wherever possible. So
that's great. Thank you. Again,
thank you for coming in. We appreciate it.
You see, we're ending up with great big thank yous all around.
We are lots of thank yous.
Okay, we're done. Yeah.
We're done. Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Wow, Andrew. Yeah, man. What are your takeaways out of that whole conversation?
Straight into it. Okay.
I know.
Yeah, like I said, that story where she goes to Kenya kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, wasn't expecting it.
The timing of her trip being in that kind of period where they were kind of in, I guess, some sort of conflict, and she had to be escorted around and stuff. Yep. I thought that was very cool. Like I don't know. I kind of I watch videos on YouTube of people doing that sort of stuff. So to hear about it from a local, it's like, holy hell, people are far more better travelled than I am.
Yes, I will definitely say that as well. I liked the part at the end of the story where she goes, I'd sent off all these faxes and telegrams to my husband, and I got back home
before they
arrived, and I was like, wow.
How times have changed.
I know,
you can just tweet instantly from pretty much anywhere in the world now.
Yep, that's
just take it for granted.
That's it. Upload something on Instagram or TikTok. But
I also found that Arts for Ukraine, the inspiration behind it being that Mariupol bombing. I didn't even know about that.
No, I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't realise the extent of it as well. And she really talks about it with such a deep passion as well. Like, you can see it really affected her.
Yeah, well, as a human being, it should affect you, you know? So, it's a really cool thing to spur on that movement. You know? I think it's a really good project to move forward. I wholeheartedly agree, and it's something that's going to do obviously wonderful things for the people in Ukraine. Because it's gonna raise money and raise even more awareness, but I think it's also going to increase the artists' visibility throughout Northland as well. Because it's an opportunity for everyone to kind of come together and go, cool, this is a common thing. Let us all unite as under one banner for a common good. Support the kaupapa.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there you go. I think that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. Somewhere in there.
Oh man, I will take the long way to get to something. You just go support kaupapa. It's like, damn it, why couldn't I get there quick?
It really is a cool thing. Like in that respect.
It is. Hearing her stories about how her different time having travelled around New Zealand as a whole, how she came in quite early with the Whangarei Youth Theatre, and then how she went down to Christchurch and essentially worked in drama and the arts at the school where they were teaching drama as well, and she came into there quite early on. So she's almost like she gets involved in these really cool projects quite early on.
Yeah, and for her to go from here to Auckland touring that show that she was talking about.
Yes,
but it had a lot of Māori culture in it, and then they took it to Aussie. That's really before its time almost.
It was, and it was so cool because she talks about being able to perform on the red clay, which is cool, and you can instantly conjure up that image in your head of what it would have been like
the atmosphere of it.
Absolutely, cool, and she says all the dust that would have gotten kicked up as well.
Yeah,
you can just almost see it.
Would have been amazing.
Yeah. Now, where can people see or hear this amazing podcast?
So, if you're looking to watch us, our beautiful faces, I guess, we're on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Northland Artist Conversation. We're also on our audio platforms. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify as Northland Artist Conversation. And if you want to get in touch, if you want to reach out and see how you can become involved in the project, or even come and sit in this chair that I'm sitting in and have a yarn with Mark, you can hit us up on our email, which is hello@northlandartistconversation.co.nz.
Absolutely. And if you want to do a little bit more than just supporting us, whether it be a thumbs up, a like, a share, or subscribe, we actually also have a Patreon as well. Now what that allows is you, the viewer or listener, to donate to the conversation. We have two different tiers. We have the first tier, which is a cup of coffee, and that's $5 a month. Really, really low, easy value. Second one that we have is what I've affectionately termed as Coffee Addict, and that's $20 a month. And what that does is that gives you a few cool features that you don't get normally. So if that's going to be a bit more of the way that you'd like to do things, 100%, we welcome that. Now you can find us patreon.com/Northland Northland Artist Conversation. And I think that's we kept everything intentionally the same way, so that people can just go to whatever their preferred platform is and go Northland Artist Conversation.
Just keep the name and the handle the same,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Northland Artists Conversation.
Nice and simple.
Straightforward.
Yeah.
A few syllables, but straightforward.
Yeah, a few syllables, a lot of vowels in there as well, which are important. What do you got coming up, man?
Not too much, to be honest.
Yeah.
Been a bit snowed under at work.
Yeah.
Yeah, just going through the motions there and trying to keep home, so yeah.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, it's definitely, I think the more that we do these, sort of the more we try and work out where that work, life, and this sort of balances. So,
Hearty.
we just got to make sure that we find that so it's best for everyone.
Yeah.
So that we can continue this and keep this journey going. Because for me, that's really important.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll do whatever it takes to sort of keep things going.
Yeah.
On that lovely high note,
Cool.
straight down the camera. My name is Mark Kelly.
And I'm Andrew McKenzie.
Thank you very much for checking us out on the Northland Artist Conversation. We will see you guys real soon.